Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the book versus the movie. Let's talk about that. Hey guys, John Bell here. Welcome back to my channel. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up if you like what you see, and hit the bell so you receive notifications. So I just watched all the Harry Potter movies, 1 through 8, with my friends Patrick and Jason. If you haven't seen our reaction to those, I'll put the link right up here and you can go check those out. Today, I want to talk about Harry Potter, the book versus the movie. Since we just watched the movie, I thought it would be awesome to get into the book and just check out the similarities, differences between the book and the movie. For the most part, the movie follows the book pretty well. But there are just some little minor details that I want to talk about. So let's talk about it. Let's start out with chapter 1 in the book. Chapter 1, The Boy Who Lived. Okay, so the book starts out talking about the Dursleys. We get a glimpse into the lives of the Dursleys before Harry Potter arrives on the scene. We see that Vernon Dursley works at a drill company. Apparently, Vernon does not like fun. He does not like imagination. He is very strict, very rigid.
I'm warning you now, boy.
Hurry up. Bring my coffee, boy.
Yes, Uncle Vernon.
What happened?
I swear I don't know!
Any funny business, any at all, and you won't have any meals for a week. Giddy.
There's really no other way to describe him besides that. We see Vernon going through his day-to-day life, going to work, coming home, doing family things. But in chapter 1, things take a turn. You've got people in cloaks, which he does not like at all. He hates anyone dressing oddly, strangely, anything that would be considered unusual. He really dislikes it. So we see people in cloaks. We see owls all over the place. There are shooting stars that really have no explanation. At least to Vernon Dursley, he has no idea what's going on. But he knows something's not right. Another person we're introduced to in chapter 1 is Dudley Dursley. In chapter 1, Dudley is still a baby, but you know from how he's described that he tends to be a troublemaker. He wants what he wants and nothing else. Another character we're introduced to in chapter 1 is Petunia Dursley. Vernon's wife. Now she is the sister of Harry Potter's mom, Lily. And apparently from what we see in chapter 1, Lily and Petunia didn't have a great relationship. And when Petunia found out that Lily had magic powers, she wanted nothing to do with magic, nothing to do with Lily. And she really shunned her and turned her back on her sister. The Dursley family acts like the Potters don't even exist. James Potter doesn't exist. Lily Potter doesn't exist. They want nothing to do with them. So definitely Harry, they don't even know his name at this point. Now, like I had said earlier, we see Vernon going through his day. He goes to work, sees things aren't right. And as far as the movie goes, we don't get to see any of this in the movie. And I would really have enjoyed seeing this aspect of the Dursleys on screen. Just seeing them, a little glimpse of them going through their day-to-day life pre-Harry Potter. Another thing about this chapter is I would have also liked to have seen how Vernon interacts with the people of the wizarding world with their cloaks, and just see how the wizarding world comes into our world, and how the two kind of separate, and the wizarding world is not open to to our world. I would have liked to have seen how the two worlds interact, considering that the wizarding world tends to be very secretive, and they don't want muggles to know anything about the wizarding world. As we move through chapter 1, we're introduced to another key character, Dumbledore. Now this guy, he is the head honcho of Hogwarts. He is one of the most powerful wizards to ever walk the earth. Dumbledore is pretty stinking awesome. We see Dumbledore appear in the middle of the night on Privet Drive. He comes in and sneakily steals the light from the street lights so no one can see him. I thought that was pretty cool. I enjoyed imagining that in my head. Dumbledore's there for one reason and one reason only: to get Harry Potter to the Dursleys. So we're introduced to Dumbledore, and then we see this cat. This cat that has been hanging out in front of the Dursleys' house all day long. We finally get to see that this is not an ordinary cat. We kind of knew that from the beginning because, I mean, come on, this is Harry Potter we're talking about. It's the wizarding world. The cat is actually Professor McGonagall. And we get to see Dumbledore. He sees the cat. He knows exactly who that cat is. And he's like, "Oh, funny seeing you here, Professor McGonagall." Now, this part of the book I enjoyed better in the book than I did in the movie, because there was a little back and forth between Dumbledore and McGonagall, and I enjoyed seeing that little back and forth. It kind of gave you a little glimpse of there's a friendship there. They go back pretty far. You see, another thing in the book is you find out that Dumbledore has a liking for lemon drop candies, and at this point, I don't know if we'll see that again in the book, but I thought it was a cool little tidbit of information that just gave you some insight on the personality of Dumbledore. Something else that Dumbledore said in the book that wasn't in the movie was a point where Professor McGonagall complimented Dumbledore for being upright and honest. Dumbledore responded with, I haven't blushed this much since I was complimented on my scarf. I enjoyed that little tidbit of information again about Dumbledore, and seeing a little bit of his personality. So as this scene goes on, we are introduced to another character, Hagrid. We see Hagrid fly into the scene, literally fly into the scene on a flying motorcycle. A motorcycle that he borrowed from Sirius Black. At this point in the book, we don't know who Sirius Black is, but that is going to be a serious character later on in the series.
Nice one, James!
In the book, Hagrid is very upset about giving up Harry. He loves Harry. You can tell that just by how he acts. He's weeping, he's wailing, he's making a lot of noise because at one point in the book, McGonagall tells him, "You gotta be quiet. You're gonna wake up all the muggles." In the movie, it's very subdued. You see tears in his eyes, and you get two shots of Hagrid with tears in his eyes.
There, Hagrid. It's not really goodbye after all.
Another thing we see in the book as well as the movie is that Dumbledore is making the decision. He's making the decision to leave Harry at the Dursleys rather than taking him back to Hogwarts, taking him into the wizarding world where he is completely famous. Dumbledore's making the decision to leave Harry with the Dursleys, even when those around him seem to be opposed to the decision. Professor McGonagall is like, "Really, Dumbledore? You're going to leave Harry with these people? These are the worst kind of people."
Do you really think it's safe? Leaving him with these people? I've watched them all day. They're the worst sort of muggles imaginable.
It only took her one day of watching them to know that these were not great people. And then as the story goes on, we see that, yeah, they're not great. So Dumbledore leaves Harry on the doorstep with a note. The note is supposed to explain everything, and Dumbledore says, oh, his aunt and uncle will explain to Harry what has happened to his family and who he really is. But we know that never happens. So after Dumbledore leaves Harry on the doorstep, he leaves Privet Drive the same way he came in, sneaks through the shadows. He uses his light putter-outer to put the lights back on the street lamps. And the last thing Dumbledore says to Harry at this point is, "Good luck, Harry." And we know that Harry's going to need it. Chapter 2 in the book. Okay, so now we do a time jump. We're jumping 10 years into the future. We see a 10-year-old Harry Potter. We see a 10-year-old Dudley Dursley. That name alone is a tongue twister. I have to slow down just to say it. But we see them at 10 years old, and it's Dudley's birthday. We get to see the Dursleys and how they treat Dudley, and it's sickening. They just spoil him. Dudley has them wrapped around his finger. When he wants 36 presents, he gets 36 presents, and if he wants 2 more, he's getting 2 more. So we see Harry. He's sleeping under the stairs. He's woken up by Aunt Petunia knocking on the door, telling him, "Get up, it's time to cook breakfast." Immediately we see that Harry is nothing more than a servant to them. Get up when we tell you to get up, cook breakfast, don't burn it this time because you burned it last time. If you burn it again, there's going to be a problem. And how do they treat Dudley? It's sickening how they treat Dudley. At this point in the story, we see that Dudley is pretty abusive to Harry, kicking him, punching him, shoving him. In the movie, you see him jumping on the stairs.
Wake up, cousin! We're going to the zoo!
At one point, he shoves him back under the stairs, kicks the door closed. So Dudley's abusive, Petunia's abusive, Vernon's abusive. He's living in this abusive household. And this is what he's been living in for 10 years. Honestly, I'm surprised Harry Potter is the person he is. You would think being subjected to that kind of behavior for 10 years would drive somebody completely insane. You see stuff like that on Dateline. Okay, so we see the Dursleys and Harry going to the zoo. In the book, we see one of Dudley's friends, Pierce, coming along to the zoo. In the movie, we don't see that character at all. But we see Harry at the zoo with the Dursleys. We see this. We have the snake scene. They're coming up to a reptile house, and of course Dudley wants to see the biggest snake there. So he goes up to the glass and starts knocking on the glass, demanding that this snake do something amazing just to entertain Dudley.
Move! He's asleep.
Because everything is about Dudley. Unbeknownst to Harry, he can talk to snakes. He had no idea.
Can you hear me?
At this point, Harry doesn't know anything about magic, wizards, wizardry, knows nothing about it. All he knows is that sometimes strange things happen. In the book, we get to see an example of his hair. He gets so embarrassed about Petunia cutting his hair off and leaving his bangs to cover his scar that he unknowingly uses magic to make his own hair grow out. Of course, he doesn't know it's magic at that point. He just wakes up in the morning and his hair's back. He doesn't know how to explain it. But Harry discovers he can talk to snakes. So he has a conversation with this snake, and he ends up letting the snake out. Not intentionally, of course. Dudley punches him and knocks him to the ground, and so in a moment of anger, Harry makes the glass disappear. In the book, we see that Dudley and Pierce jump back from the glass, and the snake comes out. In the movie, there's only Dudley. He falls into the snake aquarium. I kind of liked seeing Dudley fall into that snake aquarium. That was very satisfying. So Harry talks to a snake, carries on a conversation, and then goes about his day as if nothing really happened, but Dudley fell into the thing. That was funny. One thing that stuck out to me in this chapter was when Harry had mentioned in the car about the dream that he had about a flying motorcycle. And Vernon just came unglued. And he's yelling at Harry, "Motorcycles don't fly." And Harry's like, "Yeah, I know they don't fly. It was just a dream." I enjoyed that part of the book. Of course, we didn't see that in the movie. I would have liked to have seen like Vernon just getting all red-faced and, "Shut up, Harry! Motorcycles don't fly. Shut your mouth." But I guess we see enough of that throughout the first, I think it's 3 or 4 movies. We get there's also another part in the book that talks about how at one point Harry was running away from Dudley and his other little minions, and he ended up jumping onto the roof of the school, and he didn't know how he did it. He assumed that the wind caught him mid-jump and carried him on top of the school, which is crazy to think about. So that covers chapters 1 and 2 of the book, and we saw some clips from the movie. The first 2 chapters in the book only take up about 8 minutes worth of footage in the movie, so we got a long way to go. We got a lot to cover. Hit me up with the comments, and we'll talk chapters 3 and 4 in the next video. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and until next time.